All right, guys. So creating a workflow. Whether you've realized it or not, you kind of tend to establish your own workflow as an editor, and that is fantastic. But again, if you're a one-person unit, you're the director, the producer, the editor. You can do the workflow however you want or whatever works best for you. But when you start working in a team, you really do need to get everybody on the same page and create the best roadmap possible for you guys to reach, the end goal. So Ryan, what are the most important things we need to think about when creating this workflow?
Mm-hmm. Well, you definitely want to have a plan for everything after shooting. You want to think about what happens to your media the second it leaves the camera. And I cannot stress this enough, the most important thing on your mind should be creating a backup right away. Mm-hmm. Scott and I have been burned by mistakenly forgetting to do that process once in the past, and we will never forget again.
I believe that was about a $1,500 mistake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
so creating a backup is the most important thing and should be happening first.
Create 2 backups.
Yeah, if you can. Really the more the merrier.
If there's one thing we stress the most from this lesson, this section, I don't know, maybe this whole course, it's back up your footage.
And that goes with audio too. If you're recording it on a separate device, the same applies with your audio files.
Yes. So the next step has got to be more, we've backed up our footage. What comes next in the workflow?
So after your media leaves the camera, the first thing you want to do is back it up. The second thing you would want to do is sync the sound to the master clips, potentially create proxy files if you need to, if that applies. And then the third thing would be making sure your editor has created the project file within the software that they're using, that you will then become your master project file.
Now we have all of our footage backed up. We've got it all sunk. We've got it in the project file. We're ready to begin editing. What comes next then?
The next part of the process is when your editor creates his editor's assembly or editor's cut, if you will, and they take what you as a director or a filmmaker would have chosen as maybe your favorite takes first, going back to using continuity on set and potentially marking those camera notes. If you have favorite takes, your editor should know, and he will start dropping those in the timeline to build the rough assembly, or editor's cut as we call it.
Okay, so, and then once we have that, so we go from basically an assembly or an editor's cut, and we just kind of keep working and refining it until we get to our final cut or our picture lock.
Yeah, if I should just add, the assembly is the point in the process where the editor is assembling the footage, but they are also building the story for you. Yeah. And I would suggest as a director or filmmaker, let your editor do that just on their own first, to see where you land. They may come up with stuff you like, they may come up with stuff you hate, but you will then have the opportunity to see it and then make a decision.
Right. Okay. And that's kind of the back and forth between the director and the editor and that working relationship we talked about earlier. And then, you take it right through to picture lock. For those who don't know, picture lock is when, there's no more visual edits being made. This is finally when you can send it off to the next step. So, and what are those next steps?
Well, once you lock picture, things tend to get very more involved because that's when you start addressing the sound work, visual effects work, music for your show, and then ultimately further down the line, color correction, packaging is what we call it, but that's where you potentially add any other maybe visual effects, and then ultimately creating a final master.
Okay, perfect. And so I just want to drive this point home. When we say picture lock, why can we not change it after that?
Well, it is possible, and it does tend to happen in our digital age. It opens up the door to all these potential issues of different versions floating around. And you would have to constantly be updating the different departments at this stage. For instance, your sound people will constantly need the new cuts and the new updates when it's in everyone's best interest to just have one final locked version.
Right. So we've got our picture lock, sound effects, music, visual effects. They've all done their thing. When that's done, then what's the next step after that?
As I mentioned, packaging, just think of that as the point where you receive the audio back from the sound team, you receive all the VFX shots back from whoever might be doing your VFX, you receive the score, or you're doing it all yourself, however you're set up, you just take all of those elements and marry them back into your master project file, which most likely your editor can manage for you, or you're an assistant editor to help out with, giving you your master timeline and your let's call it your master.
Okay, so we've done what you just said. We've married together all the elements, the video, the VFX, the sound effects, the music, the coloring, all of it's good to go. We now have a master. What do I do with the master?
Now is your opportunity to create an output. That will become your master file that you use for whatever, festival submissions, showing people, putting on the internet, whatever you desire.
Okay. Perfect. And note for that, guys, we should always do the output at the highest quality possible, because whether it goes online or whether it goes to some festivals, they may require a lower res version, and that's fine. As we mentioned, you can always go down in resolution. You can never go up. So your master should always be at the highest quality possible.
And a quick note on that, for the independent filmmakers out there, you're not going to have your editor there for months after you're done the project. So it's in your best interest to create one master file that you alone can hold, and you have the ability to potentially create different versions from that master file on your own, so you don't have to find an editor to make new outputs for you consistently.